Blog Talk Radio. Blog Talk Radio.
Worlds and suns, galaxies, space and time, light and darkness and whatever else exists and other armies of life of any kind. 142. And creation is without gender, and it is neither male nor female, neither modest nor immodest, and neither timely nor untimely, or neither spacious nor spaceless. For creation is truly spirit and spirit power and light, and truly pure spirit energy in conscious form. 143. And creation is without male and without female companion, because creation is it and neuter in gender and truthful form, so it therefore differs in everything and from any life. 134. And as creation is without gender and without male or female companion, and as it is spirit energy in purest truthful form, and without tie and depending manner, how should it have sons and daughters, or who call themselves such in any type or form? And how could it then be a God who is only a human being and tyrant of a coarse mattered type of life? 135. Creation is creation of all things, and there is no creation in its universe except it, and it alone shall be honored and worshipped, which alone is truly creation, and the protection of all armies of life and everything existing, which in addition is truly created by creation alone. 136. Verily, it, which is creation, which is your creation, and the gazes of which in being you as human beings can never reach and see and grasp, but it reacheth and seeth and graspeth your gaze and your life, however you may gaze and however you lead your life at all times. 137. And creation is capable of everything, for it is the immeasurable secret, and it is the incomprehensible, the all-total and the all-knowing, and it is unto man as its own existence the most obscure of all obscurity, so therefore the immeasurable secret. 138. Verily, that is creation, which is your creation, by which is being revealed through signs in manifold form the sevenfold order and the laws and commandments of life, of evolution and of being for all armies of life. 139. Follow that which is revealed unto you by the JHWH and the prophet, you then obey the truthful laws and commandments, and the sevenfold order of creation. 39. 150. Turn away from your gods and idols, from your human beings whom you honor as God, and as sons and daughters of creation, whom you set as rivals beside it, for no creation in the universe exists except creation, which is the only one in yours. 151. Turn away from your idolaters, who lead you astray and preach to you in falsity and lying and betrayal about the self-elected or gods and idols chosen by them. 152. And verily, if creation were not true freedom, and if its creatures and the will of their ways of development were not free, then itself would have willingly ordained that rivals should exist beside it and error teachings and adoration and worship, which then would be demanded by it. 153. But as this is not so in the ways of development are free unto man, so man is free and truly determining and ruling over himself, and therefore he is the Lord and Master of himself. 154. This maketh possible for him to dispute against what is just and what is unjust, and to decide alone his way of justice or injustice. 155. And as man liveth in the free will of his decision, he seeketh only the advantage by least resistance, which lieth in the degeneracy of easiness, like the dammed up waters of the pond, which seek a leak to escape without resistance, to tear away and destroy everything as increased force. 156. And the JHWH speaks to the prophet, You have not been made the keeper of humanity, and therefore not as a watcher over them, and also not the JHWH. 157. But of your own power you have been made prophet of the instruction of truth among men. So the JHWH also is instructor for the prophet and for the generations of men. 158. And speak instructing to the people, slander not your friends and slander not your enemies and slander not the righteous and not the unrighteous, because altogether they are creatures of creation. 159. Bring forth love toward the enemies as to friends, and bring forth love toward the unrighteous as to the righteous, but be watchful and beware of falsity and lying and betrayal of the enemies and the unrighteous, so you do not suffer harm through them. 160. If an enemy or an unrighteous exist, they are human like you, so you should think and act about them and with them and for them as a human being and in love also, even if watchfulness is ordered that you do not suffer loss, if secretly they are willing to bring you harm and falsity and lying and betrayal. 161. Be friendly and loving and humane to the enemies and unrighteous, and give them shelter, food and drink and everything necessary, and offer them due honor and respect, because they are human beings as you also are human beings, and you all are the creatures of the same creation, as are the righteous as well as the unrighteous. 162. And slander no prisoners, should you take some, if you are invaded by enemies, and you have to defend yourself. 163. Honor the prisoners, and bring forth friendliness toward them, humanness, love and respect, and give them food and drink and everything which they need. 164. And slander not the old, and not the young, and not the bodily disabled, and slander not the neighbor who speaks a different language, or who has a different skin color, for every human being is equal value to the other, of whichever type or race he is, and whether he is old or young, yellow, black or brown or white or red or blue, or whether it is a child, wife or husband, or whether he is an enemy or friend or righteous, unrighteous, knowing or ignorant one. 165. And no man is subject to another, so therefore not as bond, and not as slave, and not as fighter of an army to leaders, and also not as a people to the authority and the rulers. 40. 166. And also the wife is not subject to her husband, and also the children are not subject to their parents, neither is the husband subject to his wife, nor the hired man and worker to his master, and the parents are not subject to their children, and also human beings are not subject to gods and idols, and to seducers and to priests, and their sects and religions. 167. Every human being is equivalent to the neighbor, and he shall stand in his right equivalent to the neighbor, as the poor to the rich and in reversed manner, and so every human being to the other, what and who and however he may be, and it should never be measured in two different measures in any form for the right or wrong of man, and the entire life forms on the whole. 168. And verily, the possessor should share his bread with the non-possessor of his free will, and the non-possessor shall not be demanding, nor the possessor with his neighbor, but he always shall be just in asking as he is in need of help or a thing. 169. But it is given that everyone shall do his duty in fulfillment of the laws and commandments, and the sevenfold order of creation, so also everyone shall carry out the work assigned to him, and everyone shall be learning and evolving and obedient in the creative order, so that spongers and parasites do not and never exist, who hope for help and demand help of which they are not worthy and which cannot be given to them. 170. And speak also instructing to the human beings, speaketh the JHWH, do not allow yourself to be led astray by those on the earth, who are not obedient to the laws and commandments of creation, for they willingly live a way of effortlessness and of unrighteousness, and they constantly bring false desires and false joys and false teachings, greed, discord, non-love and revenge and evil and all unrighteousness of the world up to death. 171. They are losers who walk aside from the way of creation, and they only follow delusion, and they lie and betray only. 172. And verily, many led others astray with evil falsities, lies and desires, and they do this in the lack of knowledge, or truthfully against knowing better, but those who adhere to them and walk wrong ways become guilty also with their seducers. 173. Avoid notorious injustice as well as secret injustice also, for whether notorious or secret, both are of falsity, and whoever committeth injustice in one or the other form breaketh the law, and will receive recompense accordingly. 174. And do not let yourself be led astray by tempters of faith, who set gods and idols or a god beside creation, but if you yet adhere to the tempters, you will be captured by their gods and idols or their God, and only hardly or not at all will you find your way to creation and to its truth. 175. Because gods and idols demand submission and humiliation before them, and they create violence and force, and also exploitation and enslavement through anxiety and fear, which beget restraint and breaking of will of independent and self-deciding thinking and acting. 176. As you therefore obey the seducers, you set gods and idols beside creation, and you become unfree and full of anxiety and fear, and you are obedient to the seducers and their gods and idols like beaten dogs to their masters in doggish humility. 177. For the ways of the unrighteous are covered with all evils of the world, and where seducers and gods and idols exist, their anxiety and fear and terror of punishment ruleth, which shall gain validity if the seducers, gods and idols are not wooed to. 178. And the seducers, the unrighteous, the gods and idols demand cruel punishment for ways of thinking and actions against their falsity and their false laws and commandments, and thereby the believers and adherents are being pressed into anxiety and fear and terror, so they do not become brave to oppose all falsities and the false powers which only demand punishment and death. 41. 179. The way to knowledge and to truth in thought is being denied them, and this is being done through anxiety and fear, by which they are kept in fetters and unfree by the seducers and gods and idols, who threaten with tortuous and deadly judgment and with hellish damnation if their false requirements and power demands are not fulfilled. 180. And in the background the believers of the seducers and gods and idols are aware of their anxiety and fear, but the threats of the hellish judgments and torments do not allow them to become free. 181. And those who are threatening are the seducers and their gods and idols and the sects and religions and their false laws and commandments, and they are also the priests of the believers, and those who are threatening are also the power-greedy, the profit-seekers and leaders of war armies, and they also are the authorities of the nation, who rule, mislead, harass and murder in untruthful manner and according to laws and commandments of men, and who do not rule and lead the people in the sense of spirit and truthful freedom, and not according to the laws and commandments of creation. 182. Verily, as a dead one is not able to walk among the truly living, so also can an unrighteous one not obtain justice before he has not changed himself to be righteous, as also the dead one still has to be reborn before it can be possible for him to walk among the living. 183. So a human being is able to be free only if he walks in the radiating light of life and of truth, but only such a human being will be unfree and imprisoned, who stumbleth and falleth in the prison of the blackest darkness. 184. And those who stumble and fall in blackest darkness, they fancy themselves to devise intrigues against the righteous and against creation, yet they only devise intrigues against themselves, only they do not notice, for they are dumb and blind, faint-hearted and weak, and willingless toward themselves. 185. Verily, they are the losers, and they bring to themselves degradation and punishment of their own power. 186. They do not want to live unto the truth of creation, which itself neither demands punishment nor imparteth punishment. So man continuously punisheth himself for unrighteous doings and actions, as also the rabbit is caught and killed by the eagle, if it disregardeth the threatening shadow of the down-diving eagle, and fleeth not into the protecting hole. 187. And as the eagle catcheth and killeth the rabbit, reckless of its own power, so man draweth unto himself judgment and punishment of his own power, if he burdens himself with recklessness and the will toward wrong thinking and actions. 188. Therefore, whoever conducteth himself justly and leadeth a creation righteous life, unto him his chest widens in the joy and the love, the knowledge, the truth and the wisdom, and he doth not let himself be beaten by the enemy, for he is watchful and cautious. 189. But whoever conducteth himself unjustly and leadeth a creation opposing life, he narroweth his chest, and his joy will be small, and also his love, his knowledge and the truth and wisdom. 190. That is the way of truth and the way of creation, which is the truthful and the right, and whoever worketh on it liveth obedient unto the laws and commandments of creation. 191. Verily, most different levels for all human beings exist, depending on their doings, but everything is regulated in the laws and commandments, and the sevenfold order of creation, so everyone will be rewarded according to his level and according to his doings. 192. And it is given for all times that everyone is rewarded according to his level and according to his doings, in righteousness and in impartiality, so for all times everyone receiveth his reward, as is due him, and as he is measured according to his life's conduct, and according to his deeds, and according to his thinking and actions. 42. 193. And no one can thwart or reject the reward, which is due him according to his level, for creative justice knoweth no discord, and neither favoritism nor prejudice. 194. Man therefore always should act according to his best ability, and also act in fulfillment of the laws and commandments, and the sevenfold order of creation according to his best knowing and ability. So therefore he doth right and always giveth the best according to his understanding and ability, and as he acteth and liveth truthfully and is not unjust. 195. And many misled ones, ignorant and unrighteous, exist, who believe they can present sacrifices and prayers to their seducers and gods and idols, and that thereby they are freed from their guilt of idol worship. 196. But verily, their sacrifices and prayers are directed to gods and idols, and therefore not designated to creation. 197. And whoever unknowingly presents sacrifices and prayers to gods and idols, and who believeth that thereby he reacheth unto creation, he is no less and no more than one of the other unrighteous, for he serveth idols and gods, and slandereth the truth and creation. 198. And the unrighteous will receive their own verdict, and their self-appointed judgment, and their self-elected punishment also. 199. And their judgment and their verdict and their punishment will not be from creation, and not from its laws and commandments, but they will be elected by the strength and power of man himself, measured according to the weight of the act of the trespass and the debt. 200. For man is master of himself, So he determineth his life, and judgeth of his own power and responsibility about it, as he also imposeth punishment and judgment upon himself or averteth from himself. 201. And so speaketh the JHWH, generations of men, act according to your ability, and according to your understanding and your common sense, and find which your final reward will be for the life which you lead. 202. But see, to the righteous will be given a good reward, but the unrighteous will not fare well. 203. You sacrifice fruits and fruit of the field and animals, and incense to your gods and idols, and you sacrifice blood, and even human beings and things of your riches, and you combine your sacrifices with blabbering prayers, and through them you hope for help, mercy and grace from your gods and idols. 204. But no God at any time will impart to you hearing, help, mercy or grace, and so also an idol or other same or similar form will not do, because gods are tyrants who only strive for profit and power, and idols are dead cult demons without any strength and power, which are used by priests and the like towards selfish and profit-seeking purposes. 205. Therefore you sacrifice your food and your animals and your riches without sense and without reasonable possibility of a hope, and therewith you only follow a superstitious cult, whereby you even murder and destroy human life and other life. 206. See, man of earth, as you live in righteousness and truth, you adore only creation, and therefore you only pray to creation, which is spirit form and also is a minute part within yourself, so you also can pray to the part of creation spirit within and to yourself. 207. And in no wise whatsoever is creation similar in anything to the gods and idols, so it also never ordained laws and commandments for cultish actions for itself, and therefore were never created by it laws and commandments for the offering of sacrifices to it in any form. 208. Creation is incorruptible and not caught in a partisan way, and it is without demands toward its creations, as it is only creation and fulfillment of life, and of the laws and commandments, and the sevenfold order. 209. Therefore is given that it is not demanding in any form, and therefore not in need of any gifts and sacrifices to it by its creations. 43. 210. Creation therefore is not in need of any sacrificial offerings, which also would not be according to any order of it, but which are only destruction of life, food and goods and senselessness, and squandering by cultish the generations of men, and which are only serving as false testimony and false honesty of man for the purpose of humble submission and anxiety and fear, so therefore no sacrifice offerings should be offered in any manner. 211. Therefore the sacrificial offering represents an offense against the laws and commandments, and against the sevenfold order of creation, which doth not demand or alloweth destruction, or murdering or squandering of any life, or of goods or food in whichever form. 212. And as creation is neutral in balance and in love, and as it is incorruptible and not intimidated and without demand in any form toward all life and its creations, so it only established directions and laws and commandments, and the sevenfold order, which contain all guidelines and directions for righteous life conduct for every life, which decideth in free will about its own way of life. 213. And as this is so, also not a tittle of a law or commandment of creation is established which would demand of any life a form, and therefore also not of men, that adoration and worship or gifts and sacrifices in any form should be offered to it, for creation is not demanding of anything, so therefore not in good or evil form. 214. But it is left to man's option, and it also appertaineth to him that he present reverence and respect and honoring unto creation, as also appertains to every other life. 215. And it lieth in the free will of man to conduct appeals and prayers and reverence toward creation, as he confronteth the power of true life in communication, and also the part of creation spirit within himself, which through this type of prayers is being addressed and molded in persuasive form and in true knowledge, in love, wisdom and truth. 216. From such prayer, therefore, resulteth a better feeling and security on the inside of man, so he sheltereth hope and evolveth, that due to the strength gained by addressing the part of spirit in man through prayer, unconsciously to man himself, it unfolds his powers and spends evolutionary power and impulses, whereby the wishes and hopes of man are being fulfilled. 217. Therefore, if a prayer is directed to the creation power, or the spirit part in man, or to the material consciousness and the material subconscious itself, it may stimulate effective powers in man himself and bring these into operation. 218. Whether a prayer is directed to creation or to the material consciousness forms themselves, the part creation spirit in man is thereby stimulated in direct manner, which becomes effective through good hope and the knowledge of man that spirit truly imparts help through its power. 219. Therefore a prayer is of equal value, whether it is directed to creation or to the material consciousness forms or to the spirit part of man, which is a minute part of creation of self, and he therefore also hath at his disposal the power of the spirit energy of creation, which is neutral in all things and also balanced, and which never can be altered or changed into another form, neither the spirit energy of creation of self, nor the spirit part in man. 220. Therefore it is said that creation is in no form demanding or commanding. That therefore it must be prayed to, because adoration of the creation spirit as a whole, or the spirit part within man, which is part of the entire creation, lies alone in the will and consideration of man, as therefore also in his common sense and in his understanding, which should know that prayers are a good and effective medium of help for man and for his evolution, and also for hope, wish fulfillment, safety and security. 221. Truly, namely, prayers give man the security of knowledge and of truth, so he walks in real truth and conducts his prayers in true manner. 34. 222. Prayers of adoration to creation, to the material consciousness forms, and to the spirit within man are not and never to be conducted in a manner of humility or worry or anxiety and fear, for if such is done erroneously, the moral of man sinketh, and also the security and the trust about the power of the spirit energy. 223. Neither creation nor the spirit part in man demand humility, submission or worry and anxiety and fear, for man shall be free in every way, so he does not need to worry or to fear. 224. And if adoration of creation taketh place, to the material consciousness forms, or to the spirit within man, then adoration ought not to be in the way that homage is paid, imploration or glorification, but there shall only be praise and reverence and respect, devotion and petitioning in true manner. 225. And as you conduct your prayer, you shall not babble like the believers of sects and religions, and like the heathen and other God-servants and idolaters, who conduct adoration and humility with prayers, which are endless repetitions, and refer to names of idols and gods in absurd and logically incorrect manner. 226. But if you conduct your prayers as the righteous and knowing ones, then they shall be clear and meaningful and logical in word and in truth. 227. And as you pray, conduct your prayer according to free will and according to free mind, so you yourself create words for sensible and logical prayers, which are purpose determined in a general way and determined for evolution and for righteous life conduct. 228. Take care in your prayers that you pray in devotion, which is righteous and truthful prayer and knowledge and love, so that you shall select the correct words and the correct form of prayer offering. 229. And when you pray, you shall pay attention that you pray in honesty, and not like the hypocrites, those who are the unrighteous, and who like to stand and pray at the corners of houses and in the streets and alleys, so therewith they want to shine before their fellow men in selfishness and esteem, and so therewith they win new followers and swindle and profit. 230. And verily, when you pray you shall call on the omnipotence of creation, which is the omnipotence of creation spirit, and of the spirit and of the material consciousness forms in man. 231. And in prayer you shall not be selfish, and not inconsiderate, and not submissive like the ignorant, the hypocrite and unrighteous, who imagine that thereby they would be listened to by their false gods and idols, if they speak many words nonsensically and implore them in humility or command. 232. But verily, creation spirit doth not need many words, and also not the spirit and the material consciousness forms within man. But the knowledge is needed that spirit is powerful and great and infinite in its force, through which it truly is able to move mountains from one place to another place. 233. But if you dost not understand to pray directly to the omnipotence of spirit, be content with a matter by which you can prepare and concentrate yourself, so in concentration you may find a way for your thoughts to the omnipotence of spirit. 234. But understand the matter of a helping medium in the correct way, for truly it is only a tool of help to concentration, that of itself it does not carry any power, and also is not a medium between you and the omnipotence of spirit. For truly the assisting tool always remaineth an assisting tool. 235. Therefore, never be like the priests of cults and sects and religions, and never be like the unrighteous, the hypocrites, the unwise and ignorant and selfish ones, who raise assisting media to cult objects and to relics, and who adore their assisting media in the false belief that the omnipotence of spirit resides within them. 45. 236. Be knowing therefore, that even in the use of assisting media and sacred things the omnipotence of spirit always liveth within yourself, as it is also in creation of self, which itself is spirit, and which also liveth in everything that is created by creation. 237. Therefore conduct your prayers as the knowing and righteous, and therefore you shall pray in logical consequence in your own prayers, or in prayers of general value, and therefore. 238. My spirit, thou which art omnipotent. 239. Hallowed be thy name. 240. Thy kingdom reveal itself and incarnate within me. 241. Thy power unfold within me and be effective in the earthly and in the spiritual realm in balanced and evolving manner. 242. Give me today my daily bread, which I need in the earthly and spiritual realm. 243. And let me recognize and remove my errors, and also let me recognize and acquire the truth and the love and the wisdom and the knowledge. 244. Fill me with power against temptation and confusion, and also give me power, so that I deliver myself from error. 245. I live according to thy laws, and according to thy commandments, for thine is the kingdom of spirit and of life, and the power and the knowledge, and the truth and wisdom and love and all timeliness. So be it. Amen. 246. And when you conduct your prayers to the spirit of creation, or to the part creation spirit, or to the material consciousness forms within yourself, you pray only to a power, for the creation spirit is as much in creation itself as also in all creations of creation, as also within man. 247. And when you conduct prayers to the creation spirit itself, or to the spirit within you, or to the material consciousness forms within you, then will be given unto you that which you have need of and for which you pray. But it is suggested that you are truthful in prayer and in knowledge about it, you then will receive. 248. But if you are not the knowledgeable ones, but believe the erroneous teachings that the power and the spirit are not residing within yourself, and that creation truly is not and is not residing in everything living and of the same type as the part creation spirit form within man himself, you then are without knowledge and falsely pander to gods and idols, or to another creation opposing belief servitude of another form. So you live in spirit in effectual poverty and indignant inadequacy. 239. But to those acting and living in false belief, it is also given that now and then they receive what they in erroneous belief beg for and obtain by entreaty from purpose as strange assisting media, relics and sacred things and from gods and idols, but thereby they only receive due to stubborn and erroneous belief, and therefore in law opposing form of force suggestion, and therefore without knowledge about the real truth. 250. Verily, blessed are only those who offer their life to truthful truth and to truthful knowledge, for they alone receive in honesty and in fulfillment of the laws and commandments of creation, and in truthful love and in wisdom. 251. Creation is honesty and fulfillment, and in conformity to it our life is formed. So man also who only has to fulfill in his own freedom and honesty the talents slumbering within him, which are given by the laws and commandments of creation. 252. Therefore man in his innermost part is like creation, namely in spirit, and he may make himself also like his spirit on the outer part, so he may also fulfill the laws and commandments of creation outwardly. 46 Canon 21, 1. In the name of creation, the wise, the just. 2. Praise be unto creation, which is equality. 3. And the JHWH speaketh, teach man the equality of wages of creation, and thus speaketh the prophet. 4. Creation never measureth with two different measures, and also not the valuing of wages for all things. 5. Therefore is given that man also never shall use two different measures for a wage in whichever thing this may be. 6. The wages of creation for man are uniform, if man obeyeth the laws and commandments of creation in any manner of correctness, and therefore, whether in lesser measure or in better measure, if the correctness and the honest best of understanding and ability of man is only given. 7. And it is stated that one man is more evolved than his neighbor, as he also possesses a greater understanding and ability and knowledge to obey the laws and commandments of creation, while the other one is less evolved, as also his understanding and ability and knowledge are rated as less. 8. But truly, the more knowledgeable, more understanding and more able strives the same as the less knowledgeable, understanding and able and honest, truthful and law-abiding and, therefore, in correct manner, each according to the level of their knowledge and understanding and ability, therefore they give their best. 9. And if the best is given in this manner, then the equality of effort is given, and thereby also given is the paying of equal wages by creation, so one is not being paid better and the other worse for the same effort, even if the performance is different in the measure of more or less produced. 10. And as creation giveth equality in justice and the paying of wages for equal effort, so men also shall act in equal manner. 11. And as creation thus doth not differentiate in the performance for paying of wages, but only differentiates in the effort, so shall man act in like manner. 12. And with man it happens that one due to work stands in wages with another, so one works for another or one for many or for all, but also all or many for one. 13. But as human beings differ in their evolution, in their body, in their feeling, in their learning and in their thinking and acting, so they also differ in their performances in the accomplishment of work, even if they give their best efforts. 14. But best efforts, so say the laws and commandments of creation, shall be paid in just equality, so one does not receive higher wages than the other for his best efforts. 15. This saith clearly that the daily laborer without special knowledge shall receive equal wages as the king or emperor, if both give their best efforts toward the accomplishment of the work. 16. Therefore wages shall not be paid in diversity due to different activity and work, for truthfully every work is worth its wages, which is measured according to effort and not according to performance. 17. Therefore, the carrier of burdens shall not receive higher wages than the keeper of goats, and the emperor shall not receive more than the daily laborer, and thus a different leader of the nation also shall not receive more than the farmer or house builder, and the one skilled in medicine shall not receive more than the shoemaker, if all bring and give their best effort, even if the performance is unequal. 47:18. If therefore a wage of a half ounce of silver is paid for the performing of 10 hours of work for the best effort of a goat keeper, the same wage shall be valid for the best work effort of the emperor, or the daily laborer, or the national leader or shoemaker, or anyone else, who accomplishes an activity or work with best effort during 10 hours. 19. This law is equally valid for those who are wealthy in material riches. As to them also the payment of wages shall not be higher than for those who are not wealthy in material riches, and who stand in employment with the wealthy. 20. And this law shall be valid for all human beings uniformly, as also for the instructors of truth, for the prophets and spirit leaders, for the supporters of nations and the cultivators of the muses, and also for all who accomplish a work and give their best effort. 21. Creation is equality in justice, and therefore man shall also be so, thus in the paying of wages for all work as also in that the daily laborer or goat keeper or shoemaker in esteem, in honor, in respect and in all rights and duties are equal to the king or emperor, as this also shall be for all human beings without difference, whether one is brown or white or red, yellow, black or blue in skin color, or whether he is poor or rich, or knowing one or ignorant, and also whether the one is of good schooling or bad schooling or whatever. Canon 22:1. In the name of creation, the wise, the just. 2. Praise be unto creation, which is correctness. 3. Speak instructively unto the human beings, saith the JHWH to the prophet, and inform them of the application of just discernment, and so the prophet speaketh. 4. Creation is without compulsion and pressure in anything toward its creatures, therefore these manage freely according to their own estimation and in all matters. 5. And thus as man is free also and not forced and not pressured by creation in anything, so he standeth in responsibility unto himself in all matters of his thinking and acting. 6. Thus thereby is said that creation judgeth not over man, no matter what his thinking and acting is. 7. Creation only formeth an opinion of every matter, without casting a judgment or to demand punishment, whichever may occur. 8. Judgment therefore is established by violence and force, and the judgment is connected with punishment. 9. But an opinion only establisheth the correctness of a matter, according to which a measure can take place, which leadeth thereto that incurred damage or committed errors can be removed. 10. And therefore the measure has to be measured according to the laws and commandments of creation, so that the measure never shall be of the kind that a life form will be harmed in any way by it, or that it lose its bodily, thinking or spiritual freedom partially or in total. 11. Therefore no human being and no other life form shall be disadvantaged by judgment or be enjoined with punishments, if these infringe partially or in total upon the freedom of the body, the thinking or the spirit. 12. Verdict means judgment by violence and force, which is creation foreign in all parts, so forming an opinion only is of correctness, which elucidateth the correctness of a matter. 13. And if measures have to be taken with a human being by an opinion, they should be creation concordant, and therefore so that the human being suffereth no harm whatsoever in body, and in thinking and in spirit, or in any other way. 48:14. If errors, harm or even guilt become evident by human beings, who live contrary to the laws and the commandments against a given order, and if through misdeed they become subject to an opinion, then by an opinion, justice is to be carried out in correctness. 15. But if an opinion is to be carried out in justice of correctness, then measures are to be taken in the same justice of correctness. 16. And as man may not be harmed by measures of an opinion in his freedom of body, of thinking and of spirit, the only measure to be undertaken in a criminal offense, as in murder of life, dictatorial power conduct, criminal acts, and everything which is of the same unworthiness, is that the fallible shall be separated from the human community for life. 17. And places of fulfillment for the carrying out of such measures shall be established, which are far away from human settlements, and which are without jail and without hardship, without violence and without force by guards and overseers and executor. 18. Per measure fulfillment the most remote places shall be selected like islands and planets, from where an escape of the fallible is not possible, but where all possibilities of the teachings and of bodily, mental and spiritual freedom are provided for them. 19. And at the places of measure fulfillment everything in essential tools shall be provided to the fallible, which are necessary that they can in evolving manner engage themselves in all teachings and in righteous life conduct, so they also are equipped for all activities which are essential to the cultivation and production of food and shelters and remedies and everything else essential to life at the place of measure fulfillment. 20. And therefore with such kind of measure fulfillment it is to be considered that the sexes of male and female are separated, so a place of measure fulfillment shall be chosen for one sex only, and another place of measure fulfillment for the other sex only. 21. And if there are women, who have to be taken to remote places of measure fulfillment, they shall first be questioned about new life in their body, and therefore in every case they should only be brought to the place of measure fulfillment 9 months after the measure pronouncement, so that no offspring is being born at the places of measure fulfillment. 22. The offspring of the fallible shall be born in the innocent community of human beings, and thus they shall be arranged into the rearing and life there, but in the family circle of the fallible, or, if it deems necessary, into the keeping of the people, or with foster parents or the substitute. 23. If measures have to be taken which do not concern a form of crime, but are of lesser offense as the theft of possessions in small measure, and which do not exceed the value of 70 lot of silver, 35 ounces, or offenses of any other type and form, which are not directed against body and life, and do not exceed a loss value of 70 lot of silver, the measure by opinion shall be in the first case that a warning will be given, but in the second case, and in repetition of the same or other offense, the measure of separation from the human community for 7 years at remote places of measure fulfillment shall occur, and in the same manner as the other fallible, however at a special place, and not at the same place with the fallible, so that a return to the human community after 7 years can be made possible, where the returning ones then may or may not adapt to the given order, and at a third offense they have to be judged as fallible, and have to be brought to the measure fulfillment places of the fallible for life. 24. But an opinion shall not be formed in injustice and not as a verdict, also opinions shall not be formed by judges who pronounce verdicts, which is against the laws and commandments of creation. 49:25. The opinion formers shall be human beings of the people who are righteous and fulfilling the laws and commandments of creation, and for every opinion they shall be chosen by lot, and newly from case to case. 26. And they shall also be just and unprejudiced, and not be connected to those about whom an opinion is to be formed, and they shall form an opinion according to laws and commandments, and therefore not judging and condemning, and they shall be free of partiality. 27. And thus in every case you shall only form an opinion in just correctness, and you shall never judge or pronounce a verdict. 28. Therefore it saith, Judge not so that some day you yourself are not judged, and that you do not heap guilt upon yourself. 29. But if you transgressest against the laws and commandments of creation, and if you judge therefore, and with whichever judgment you judge, so will you yourself be judged sometime by your own power. 30. And consider, with whichever measure you measure, so will you be measured again, as by yourself as also by the creation guidelines and by your neighbor. 31. Form an opinion about everything and every matter according to the logic of the laws of nature, which are from creation, and which alone have their truth and their validity. 32. Therefore you shall not see the splinter in your neighbor's eye, and thereby not become aware of the beam in your own eye. 33. And therefore you shall not trouble yourself to pull the splinter from the eye of your neighbor, while the beam in your own eye causeth you blindness, so you dost not take hold of the splinter in your neighbor, but cuttest out his eye. 34. But if you only seest the splinter in the eye of your neighbor and disregardest the beam in your own eye, you are only a hypocrite. Therefore remove first the beam from your own eye and heal the pain, and only then see to it that you removest the splinter from the eye of your neighbor without hurting him. 35. Therefore it saith, that first you shall acquire the regarding of the laws and commandments of creation, and thus the laws of nature and its logic, before you cast an opinion on anything, that through the knowledge of truth you thus dost not condemn and judge, and dost not want to see the faults in your neighbor. 36. First learn to recognize and remove your own faults by the laws and commandments of nature and of creation, so you only then recognize the faults of your neighbor in truthful manner, and can teach him how he has to remove his faults by himself. 37. Thus you shalt be watchful in honesty and righteousness, and you also shalt guard the freedom and the knowledge, and also the love and the wisdom for yourself and also for your neighbor, that you givest not to dogs what is holy, which in eagerness devour everything indiscriminately if they take a fancy for it. 38. But truth and love, logic, freedom, knowledge and wisdom, and also righteousness and obedience of the laws and commandments of creation are best treasures of immeasurableness, and to you therefore of equal value to pearls. And you shall not throw your pearls before swine, that they do not trample them underfoot, and so they do not turn against you and tear you apart. 39. Thus therewith is said, that you dost not throw your spiritual possession and your possession of consciousness into the dirt, and not waste it on the unworthy, for they do not thank you for it and tear you apart, because their understanding is small and the power of their will is weak. 40. And therefore, as you form an opinion about the matter, see the truth, do not be of false hope and false feelings therein, but form an opinion in justice of correctness, and therefore in the right measure of measures, that you are not trampled down and torn apart by the unrighteous fallible and by the other unrighteous, if you seekest false opinions and false measures. 41. Thus do not judge so that you are not judged, but form opinions in righteousness of correctness, so you are righteous ones, and that it be well with you. 42. Regard the correctness of the laws and commandments of nature and those of creation, and as you live unto them you live righteously in incorrectness. 43. If facts are given then by the guilty or fallible, which prove that a deed or action of trespass against the laws and commandments, and against the given order hath occurred in confusion of the senses and diseased form, then the fallible or guilty have to be brought to healing places of diseases for such a time until they are healed, so that they then are returned to the community of human beings, and lead their life under guardianship. 44. If deeds or actions have been committed by the guilty or fallible in injury of the senses by means which have been ensued due to fermentation or brewing, pressing out, scratching off or refining of fruits and grain and plants of all types, which are a means of intoxication and of anesthesia, Then no forbearance is to be practiced for the guilty and fallible, for they already make themselves guilty and fallible thereby that they succumb to the indulgence of substances of intoxication and of anesthesia, which hem the evolution of consciousness and of spirit, which is destruction against body and life, and therefore transgressing against the laws and commandments of creation. 45. Therefore it is said, as is given by the laws and commandments of creation, that the most serious crimes are deeds and actions, and are measure ensuing, which are committed against body and life, and against possessions of greater values, as against the neighbor, as it also refers to one's own person. 46. Therefore the same is valid for the indulgence of substances of intoxication and anesthesia, if such are given to a neighbor, or if they are being used by one's own person, without these being substances for the preservation or regaining of health, or any other substance designated for a healing process. 47. If a deed or action in fallible manner is committed in carelessness, the measure shall be 7 years at the place of measure fulfillment. 48. If a deed or action in fallible manner is committed by reasons of degenerated emotion, the measure shall be the place of measure fulfillment for the lifetime. 49. If a deed or action in fallible manner is committed in carelessness, or on purpose or for fun, then the measure shall be the place of measure fulfillment for the lifetime. 50. And every deed or action is fallible which injures the for-life conduct and the evolution of a neighbor, so the measure at the place of measure fulfillment shall be for the lifetime. 51. Every killing is fallible, and murder of unborn life, which is older than 21 days, so the measure at the place of measure fulfillment shall be for the lifetime. 52. And every wickedness committed against any life and body is fallible, against a human being, to animals of all types, and against nature also, so the measure at the place of measure fulfillment shall be for the lifetime. 53. But whoever causeth pollution or destruction in any way whatsoever in toward body or life, to the air breathed, to the waters, to the sky, to the earth, to any animals, or to a human being, but also to the natural treasures of the planet, or to trees and plants, or to feelings and thoughts, and to all which exists, to him the measure at the place of measure fulfillment shall be given for the lifetime. 51, 54. And the measures for the guilty and fallible and for their helpers and accomplices are to be uniform without difference, for the measure of crime of fallibility is the same, whether a deed or action of the offense is committed directly or indirectly and by one human being or by several. 55. And you also shalt determine measures depending upon the opinion forming of a matter, yet there shall truly be justice and correctness and without relationship, if the just determination is worked out. 56. Opinion forming in justice of correctness is the measure of the entirety of all examination, and it only is of correctness, so a verdict shall never be cast, which only embodies violence and force, and which at the beginning was invented by man as vengeance practice. 57. Thus a verdict truthfully is vengeance demand and vengeance practice, which splits the unit of balance, so that through a verdict, which is vengeance, part of the rights of the laws and commandments of creation are taken from man. 58. It is justice and correctness only, if a matter through opinion forming reveals the truthful values, to which for every matter uniformly equal measures without difference are to be ordered. 59. An opinion forming in justice of correctness is valid equally and without difference for human beings and for all life. 60. And if opinion forming of a matter about a human being ensues, wherefrom measures result and are essential, then all measures are uniformly decisive and without difference for all human beings. 61. The measures to be taken, resulting from opinion forming, are valid in equal measure and without difference for all human beings, as for the one without possessions as also for the one owning possessions, and as well for the goat keeper and the king, for the water bearer and for the instructor, and as well for all people of all colors and activities, for the young and for the old and for every rank. 62. If man formeth a false opinion due to intimidation, or due to partiality, or greed, or force, or violence, he becomes guilty and shall be taken as measure to the measure of fulfillment places for life. 63. And thus the one also shall be ordered into the measure at the measure of fulfillment places for life, who speaks false testimony, if therefrom resulteth a false opinion forming, or any other damage in possessions, or to nature, or to body and life. 64. The breaking also of a contract of any type is debt incurring. A contract break between nations is also a contract break in marriage between husband and wife, and also any contract break between one or more parties of which type they ever may be, so the measure at the measure of fulfillment place shall be for life. 65. And as an indebtedness is incurred in a contract break, then indebtedness also is incurred in the break of trust and in break of promise, so the measure at the measure of fulfillment place shall be for life. 66. If there is parasitism or totism, robbery or extortion, or non-values of similar type, the measure of fulfillment place shall be for life. 67. And if falsity, greed or envy, vice, hatred or jealousy or unworthiness of other emotional types occur, as also wrong talk against the neighbor, evil bothering of the neighbor, fist fights to carry out punishment of self-justice or similar, the matter is of fallibility and to be handled as such through the three measures determined therefore. But if damage is caused to body or life or to possessions, the measure of lifetime measure fulfillment place is to be given. 68. Self-defense proven by opinion forming is in every case free from measure taking, if a human being acts in defense of his own or the neighbor's life, or to protect his or his neighbor's body, or his neighbor's possessions, and if he damages an attacking or robbing being in body or life or kills him, he is free of indebtedness, if self-defense is truthfully given. 52-69. Self-defense in every case is given only if one's own or the neighbor's body and life and the possessions are being protected thereby, when defensive force is being used during body endangering and life endangering aggressive violence of the attacker. 70. Anything is not and never considered self-defense without direct body endangering or life endangering attack, in which one's own or a neighbor's body or life would be endangered. Canon 23:1. In the name of creation, the wise, the just. 2. Praise be unto creation, which is cognizance. 3. Speak instructing to the human beings, saith the JHWH to the prophet, that everything is aligned in the manner as it is being impressed by the life conduct of man. 4. It is being taught that everything, whichever you want and what shall be done unto you, you yourself shalt give the same and do the same, for that is the law and application and result, and so is the speech of the prophet and the speech of the JHWH. 5. As you want good, and if kindness shall be given unto you, then do good and give kindness, but therefore you have to enter through the narrow gate of righteousness. 6. Enter in through the narrow gate, because the gate is wide and the path is narrow, which leadeth to the fall into the abyss and into destruction, and many are those who walk thereon into ruin. 7. Therefore the gate is narrow and the path small, which leadeth unto life and knowledge, unto truth and unto wisdom and unto love, and those are few only who find it. 8. And error teachers exist among you, and you shall be cautious of those who are false prophets and scribes, sect masters and religion representatives, and also all kinds of others come, which cometh in lamb's clothing to you, while within them they are tearing wolves, and always willing to tear you apart, but whereby they preach for you to have humility before holy artifacts, and before gods and deities, and before idols and error teachings. 9. And the mendacious error teachings of the deceivers and seducers are slippery and lustful, and therefore they are sweet and enticing and infatuating and promising all things of pleasure, of fortune and of splendor, of peace and of wealth and of eternal life. 10. But these are only the words of the false prophets and deceivers and liars, who speak and solicit so and who smear stolen honey around your mouth with insinuating words and promises. 11. The real truth truthfully is of a different type, and the truthful prophets really are also of a different type, therefore also the truthful leaders of spirit, and the benefactors and the righteous as well. 12. And the words of truth are hard and striking the unrighteous ones, and so are the truthful prophets since times of old, and so is the last prophet of the line also who is given at the present time. 13. Therefore is said that the word of truth is hard, which is also brought in hard expression and in hard speaking by the prophet, so the words of truth are not insinuating, sweet, promising or enticing and slippery, but upsetting and striking, and they place everything at the whipping post in recognizable nakedness, which is according to real truth. 14. Do not seek therefore your well-being with those who are false prophets and sect leaders and the like and who smear stolen honey around your mouth, but seek your well-being with the truthful leaders and with the real prophet, who tell you the truth in striking hard words, and who demand effort from you in hard obedience of the laws and commandments of creation. 53:15. Beware of the tearing wolves in sheep's clothing, for they intend to tear you, wherefore you should recognize them by the fruit they offer unto you. Therefore whether the fruit is sweet and enticing, or whether it is hard and upsetting and striking and nourishing. 16. By their fruit shalt you recognize them, so you become knowledgeable that you cannot harvest grapes from thorn bushes, and also no figs from the thistles. 17. Thus you shalt become knowledgeable that you shalt plant good trees and keep them in good health, if you want to harvest good fruit. 18. But as you plant and care for a healthy and good tree, you have toil and much hard labor. But as the tree hath reached its age, it bringeth you good fruit. 19. Therefore you shalt be watchful, and recognize the tree by its fruit, for a good tree cannot bear bad fruit, and a rotten tree cannot bear good fruit. 20. Be aware and recognize the tree, which only beareth good fruit through loving care and hard work, but the one beareth diseased fruit, which did not receive loving care, and for which hath not been worked hard. 21. Thus you shalt recognize the trees by their fruit, and also the bringers of truthful or of false teachings, as the prophets also of falsity or righteousness. 22. And whoever of you doth so is like a wise man who built his house upon a rock, and when the torrential rain fell and the waters came and winds blew and pushed against the firm house, it still did not fall and stood fast against wind, water and harm, for it was built upon a rock and anchored within it. 23. Yet whoever of you doth not so is like a foolish man who built his house upon sand, and when the torrential rain fell and the waters came and the wind, which pushed against his house, it crashed down and did a great fall, and was washed away because it was built on sand, on loose ground. 24. Therefore do like the wise man, who heareth and seeth and listeneth, and thinketh and feeleth, yet he doth not speak about it, and calleth nothing his own before he hath considered and explored all things within himself, so he hath become resolved in finding the truth, which he showeth to the seeking as advice thereafter. 25. And the time of the tree during growth is slow and difficult, and having to withstand storm and rain and snow and sun and wind, before it reacheth age and beareth blossom clusters from which grow up fruit. 26. Thereby is said also that the path of man is long and difficult in his growth of learning the truth, and in enduring of battles against untruth and hostility, when he hath found the narrow gate and the narrow path unto life. 27. And the goal of life is not reached in hours or days or weeks or months, when the gate and the path of life are found, for the becoming of the real recognition and of the first success lasteth a long time, which is measured in years. 28. Thus the gate and the path of life and the truthful truth must first be found, only then beginneth the becoming into real recognition and of the first success, before the time of enjoyment of truthful life follows, which is like the good fruit of the tree when they grow and ripen. Canon 24:1. In the name of creation, the wise, the just. 2. Praise be unto creation, which is guidance. 3. And the JHWH speaketh thus to the prophet, be instructive unto men about the truth, that creation is guidance. Thus the prophet also teacheth and speaketh. 54:4. It is creation, which hath given you all ways of guidance in all things, which in balanced obedience lead to the existence of life, and to life in truthful manner according to the laws and commandments of creation, with everything essential for the evolution of the spiritual and the material realm. 5. So creation is wise guidance and hath given guidelines for everything that occurreth in life. 6. And man only has to follow the guidance of creation, so he flourisheth and liveth and evolveth in balance and unto his well-being. 7. Creation alone hath created heaven and earth, and the proof therefore has been given you in everything that exists, and man may try to sprout only one single kernel without the guidance of creation, and verily he will not succeed. 8. Creation leadeth all things in just ways and in love, wisdom, knowledge, and truth and balance, so not one single creature suffers harm in any way through creation itself or through its laws and commandments, and through its sevenfold order. 9. Therefore it also doth not abuse the unrighteous and the other creation slanderers, and God's servants and idolaters, but it alloweth them the free will of decision, so they may return unpunished at any time to the path of balance, and to the truthful fulfillment of the laws and commandments of creation. 10. And therefore man shall not slander the unrighteous and other creation slanderers, but be guidance and instruction unto them in love, knowledge, truth and wisdom, so the fallible find the way to the justice of life and to creation. 11. And thus the guidance shall not be in violence and force, and also not by verdict pronouncement and verdict fulfillment, as is given, that also a punishment shall never be passed and executed by a verdict, whereby the verdict executor makes himself guilty as do the verdict producers also. 12. If a creature, due to a verdict, is placed into fetters, or is hurt in body or robbed of his life, the executors as also the verdict producers and the verdict representatives and verdict advocates become guilty thereby. 13. And creation doth not lead any life therefore by verdicts and punishment and verdict execution, therefore man shall do like it. 14. The guidance of creation is justice and love, and man has to be likewise, thus guiding and just and without vengeance and similar, which is degenerative in comparison to creation. 15. And verily, the guidance of creation is perfect in all things, as also truth is perfect and unchangeable as it is given by the JHWH and the prophet in truth and love and justice, and which is never changeable by lying, deceit and falsification, for the guidance of creation doth not allow this, because it is the wise and just and omniscient one. 16. Thus is also determined in the guidance of creation that everything shall serve man as food which flourishes as edible for him, so everything in plants, fruits and animals of the air, of the waters and of the earth. 17. And what reason should man have not to eat edibles, if the edible is given to him by nature, for he is created differently from the plant world and from all animals, namely in that he is a consumer of all things which flourish as plants, fruits and animals. 18. Thus man is omnivorous, and therefore different from all plants and from all animals with exceptions to a minor degree. 19. But wherever exceptions exist among animals, which also are omnivorous, these animals are to be considered as unclean as food for man in the sense that danger exists in butchered meat, if it is not fresh any more or not dried, because this is quickly infested with disease-causing agents and epidemic. 55:20. Therefore man shall eat meat with caution from such animals considered unclean in this manner, which the pig is to be mentioned as a decisive part. 21. Meat of pigs is not forbidden to man as food, but it is unclean to him if he considers the disease-causing agents, and so he shall exercise caution in good measure, for truly the meat of the omnivorous animals is different in susceptibility of disease-causing agents than the meat of other animals, to which however also caution and heed shall be paid, as also to all other food, if it is no longer fresh or is wilted or spoiled. 22. Through the guidance of creation also is given that man is omnivorous, but to whom is ordered heed and caution, so he only shall ingest food which is free of disease-causing agents and is in part prepared by himself. 23. And this means therefore that by the guidance of creation man shall stand above the mode of life of plants and of animals, so he therefore shall be well-mannered, kind and polite, whereby he differentiates himself in another way from animals and from plants. 24. Truly therefore, everything is given to man as food whatever is edible of plants and fruits and animals, but he shall practice heed and caution and discrimination, because his health is in danger in regard to spoiled and also to poisonous food, which flourisheth and liveth in community with the non-poisonous. 25. And truly it is injustice and wicked doing,